Good afternoon, everybody. Since 2014, which is more than 10 years, Detol Banega Swasth India campaign has successfully fostered awareness and behavioral change, empowering families and communities to lead healthier and more sustainable lives, moving towards a truly healthy Swasth India. So today our theme is Innovating Health, Creating Sustainable Communities. Now obviously to create sustainable communities requires a multifaceted approach that leverages technology, community engagement and collaborative efforts. And I'm really excited to have all the panelists here. Thank you all for joining us. To begin with, Dr. Indra, I would like to start with you here. You've been a part of the campaign since 11 years. How important is, when it comes to hygiene, when we talk about a truly healthy India, take us through this journey of the past decade, now which is in the 11th year of the campaign.
Thank you, Ambika. I think firstly I would like to say that speaking in front of an audience like this is such a proud privilege for me. I mean, such an audience which are so enlightened and into so many things, such a broad-based knowledge here. It's really a pleasure and an honor. What Ambika asked me, I've been with this program for the last 11 years when it started. And that was the first time when Swachh Bharat initiative had started with the health. This concept came into in that how link health to the Swachh Bharat issue, how cleanliness and hygiene can be linked to health. I think that was the main thing from where this program had started. And I always personally feel that when we talk, it's a very common saying that the health of the people should be in their own hands. So that means that people should be able to manage their own health. But I have a second meaning to that the health should be in the hands of the people. That means the hand hygiene. The hygiene of the hands is so important. So I have two meanings for it, that hand hygiene, or what I mean hygiene, is basically the crux of health. And therefore I think no health program can stand on its own unless you have support of cleanliness, hygiene, and as we know, as the world is going, as you all know, that the population density is increasing. Look at India, we're one of the highest populated country. Look at the pollution that we produce here. Look at the other changes that are happening. The rivers are changing, the climate is changing, the air is changing, even the sunlight is changing. It can't reach us the way it reaches us. So with all that, I think it's very, very important that at least we keep our infections away. The COVID came in, new infections are coming in every day. We have a huge breakout in Pune, Ravi, very soon. So I think it's very important that hygiene should be the crux of the health problem. Unless we maintain hygiene, unless we maintain cleanliness, unless we maintain sanitation, our water will get polluted, our food will get polluted, our soils will get polluted, we lose our forests. So I think everything, the crux of everything is hygiene. And that's why I think this is such an important program.
So truly it is the foundation of good health. Thank you, Dr. Indra.
The crux, the
Jay, if I could just come to you, tell you a little bit about the campaign. When it started, it was called Banega Swachh, which meant clean India. And then we actually evolved and it became Banega Swasth India, which is healthy, right? India will be clean. As a climate expert, you've really worked in this field. I mean, we all know how climate change is impacting our health. If you can just briefly tell us that impact, because you've also spoken about the need of climate doctors. If you can tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the impact of climate change on health, the list it's a long list, and it's extreme heat, it's food insecurity, it's water insecurity, it's vector-borne disease, mosquitoes and ticks going in places it's never been before, it's forced displacement. And the data tells us that this is like any other disease, it's impacting our health. But as we progress in this narrative, what hasn't progressed is the clinicians of the world really have been conspicuously absent. We really haven't caught up and changed our own understanding of pathophysiology as a result of climate change. And so we are a very powerful constituency, right? We are the healthcare providers. And so it's incumbent upon us to really understand those roots of diseases, what's going to make us sick, and how to prevent, and if we're unable to prevent, then how to treat, and a real keen understanding of vulnerability. Who's vulnerable, and how do we begin to assess that vulnerability, just like we do with diet or smoking or diabetes or high blood pressure. These are all things that we're very familiar with, and we have no problem treating it. And so it's really, a little closer, yeah, sorry. It's really one of those things where we have to have that situational awareness to be good care providers in these changing times.
So I think what you really said about more preventive rather than curative, that approach is important, and knowing first is extremely important.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. When you're taking care of a patient, it's much easier to say, don't smoke, than it is taking care of them in the ICU when they're stuck on oxygen, right? You won't have those outcomes. So the best disease is never to get the disease in the first place. The best treatment, yeah.
Sonali, just coming to you here, since our panel is talking about creating sustainable communities, children really are at the forefront. They are our future. If you want to future-proof children, Sesame Workshop India works closely with children, you know. So what kind of tools are you all creating to really bring about behavioral change, or anything basic, like telling them what to do right?
Actually, I just want to take from what Dr. J just spoke about, that we don't understand the impact of what's going on with us. And I think what, as Sesame, we really want to foreground that probably the audience or the group that is most impacted is children. And they were never the face of COVID, they're not the face of climate change, but they're deeply impacted. And for us to first recognize that, and I think you also hit another nail on its head by saying, if you want to future-proof anything, we need to work with children because they are the future generation. And how do you create sustainable environments? So I think a very simple thing is build good habits from the beginning. So someone would say, hey, washing hands is so simple, like you just do this. But it's not true. In fact, if you just think how many times a day do you wash your hands? If I ask this general question to anyone in this room, 5 times, 10 times, 15 times, do you have an answer?
Probably wouldn't even keep a track.
You won't even keep a track. Like, I'm just asking this question, just like, did you even for 2 seconds, could you recall how many times you washed your hands? Nobody remembers. So I think just for us to build that healthy habit, to just remember that, you know, when kids, you have to, as adults, so what's the responsibility of the adult? Like you spoke about clinicians, as caregivers, we are, you know, the duty bearers for the next generation. And today everybody's talking about Gen Alpha, now there's Gen Beta. So the tools, and I hope we'll get more time to talk about
we
that.
will come to that.
So the tools today are different from what it was probably when I was growing up. We didn't have TV, that I saw TV come in, color TV come in. Now a kid has a phone which can launch a rocket. I mean, that's the technology in your phone, right? So my question to us is, how do we cater to them? And what is that spectrum that stimulates in them those hygiene habits? So I think we have to think of every strategy. There's not one silver bullet. And I would love to spend some time, but I can wait for the next question.
So we'll come back to the tools
sure.
and what you're doing. So Ravi, the campaign, yes, incredible journey. We've done it together 11 years, right? Take us to the journey, but since we're talking about children, 30 million kids is what Detol Banega Swasth India, you know, you worked with. What change have you seen in the past decade?
Thank you so much, GLF. Thank you so much, Ambika and others. 11 years journey is actually very fabulous. And every year I tick some things on my bucket list and I complete my bucket list. The bucket list started with a school program with 2,500 schools, which is nothing in a country of 1.4 billion population, and now reaching around 1 million schools and 30 million school kids across India. That's one thing which has really happened. The campaign started on a note of Clean India Mission. We very rigorously worked on the determinants of health. And also we worked on the poverty reduction strategy papers to make sure how the school absenteeism by the virtue of our work goes down. Will there be a change in the life expectancy, commissioning the big studies on that? There was a time which came in between, the COVID came, and we curated the world's biggest campaign with the help of TikTok. Now TikTok is banned in India and in many parts of the world. We could take our whole campaign on the TikTok, and there are around 14 billion views of the hand washing challenge which happened on TikTok. Then a massive step which we took was, we have the Dettol sanitizer bottles. We say, let's celebrate the champions, and we removed our logo from the bottles during the COVID. They were public health nurses, they were public health engineers, they were people who are trying to help each other during the COVID, the warriors. And we put all the warriors, if I see, there were 7 million warriors which were there on our Dettol packs. And we removed our logo from Dettol to celebrate the work which everyone was doing. We also realized in this 11-year journey, when the kids joined back in schools, they were very clingy to their parents because they have been living indoors for the longest time. We came up with the first hygiene play parks in 2 states in India. One is Andhra Pradesh and second is Uttar Pradesh. And from there, we started getting demands from various other organizations. And we are working with the McKinsey Healthcare right now to determine the impact of the hygiene play parks. Like you may have gone to the Disneylands or some other play parks. We thought there needs to be a play park which inspired the hygiene to the kids. From there, we actually took another big challenge of creating an Olympiad. Like you have the Science Olympiad, you have the Physics Olympiad, you have the Maths Olympiad. In our last Olympiad, 20 million kids participated across India. And a lot of people inspired us in the whole journey. Dr. Indra Chakravarti, we have Jack Sim, world over he is known as the toilet man, he's sitting in the front row. So we started discussing with some very interesting people like what changes they have brought to the world and like can we also work on something which is on climate. A lot of people challenged the status quo and they asked us like, Dettol and climate and Reckitt and climate doesn't go hand in hand. I say climate proofing is the biggest thing. And we started our 4 climate resilient schools in India. In one of the states called Uttarakhand. And our climate resilient schools have delivered some very interesting findings now we have with us. And a big research is going on at this moment, which is an intersection of the climate, health, germs, and that's the independent, one of the India's biggest studies. The results will be out in next few months. We'll be happy to share with you. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi, for telling what has really happened on ground, and it's some really incredible work. Dr. Indra, when we're talking about building sustainable communities, tell us with your experience, you're a Padma Shri, really public health specialist, you worked across the country, in fact, even globally. Tell us the impact with what community-led initiatives can actually bring about, like Ravi just spoke about the work which has been done. But in general, what impact do you see?
You just heard from Ravi about the remarkable journey this program had had. When it was initiated 11 years back, I think we never expected that this would be such a massive coverage and a massive response to the whole program. It was kind of even baffling for all of us that what was happening. And I think at that time it was, and it changed every year. 11 years was each year different from the previous year. Each time the targets, objectives, everything changed depending on how the target people, we never call them targets. I mean, what reaction was coming from the community. So I think it was a huge community study as a matter of fact. A huge research, I might also say. It was just not, we did a lot of, reached a lot of people. It was an operational kind of work. But a lot of data came out from it, which showed what is the most critical thing. Who are the most critical people you want to touch? And I just mentioned earlier what you said. I think now I feel personally at this age of mine that children are possibly our most critical people because not only are they affected the most, they have a long time to go, but secondly, if you can inculcate habits into them, when they're small, it stays with them. For example, my grandson, who's 8 years old, we always made an habit during the COVID that when he comes to see me, wash hands and come. First thing now he does, every day, every time, before seeing me, he'll go wash his hands very properly with soap, and then come to me. Never ever. If there's no soap, he'll wait in the bathroom to get the soap. Till the soap comes, he will never ever, a child, if you teach the child once, he doesn't go from them because it gets into them. I remember as a child, my mother is a Kannadiga, not a Bengali. So she taught us that you have to wash your feet before you get into the bed, before you sleep, always. If you didn't wash or sleep, she would make me sleep with my feet outside the bed. Stick your feet out and sleep. Now that is not possible. So I had to wash my feet. It's not possible. And that stayed with me even I'm 76 years old. It stayed with me. Even today, before I sleep at night, I have to wash my feet. Even if it's cold, if it's wherever I am, to wash my feet. So I think these habits with children stay. They are with you. They never go. Even however old you become, these are. It's somehow it gets into your genes. You know, it becomes your genetics. I think DNAs get motivated that your DNAs don't rest if you don't do that. Therefore, as Sonali was mentioning, children possibly are our most critical target children, but one must remember that children of what we were and the children of today are completely different. Completely different. Like my grandson who's 8, he always played something called Minecraft. He always go to the TV. Parents have given time bar, lock for the children. But when they come to me, no lock. So first thing he does is play Minecraft. My little granddaughter who's 3, Ravi, she always wants Gabby. She wants to see Gabby. And now nothing. You want Papa Pig? No, Gabby. So these are little things that the children nowadays, they're far more intelligent, far more receptive, and they keep asking questions all the time. The kind of knowledge they see from the TV, like how far is the moon from here, how many light years, a 7-year-old child, I would never even think of it. I would even dream of it. Even now I can't answer. So I think today's children are very, very different from our childhood. I'm 3 generations above him, but our childhood was completely more simple. We liked no questions asked, whatever was told to us, we listened. No, not today's children. You have to explain to them, you have to give evidence, or maybe even scientific evidence, what you are doing. So I think these children are, in a way, very difficult children to handle because they're smart, they're intelligent, very high IQ. But once they believe in what you are saying, you tell them what's to be done, and they know this is right, they will do it. They will not stop doing it. So I think it's very important, Ambika, that our target group changed over the years.
And we start inculcating
mothers,
them.
moms, women, gender, all that is there. It's important. But I think crux of the problem of health, as I mentioned, is hygiene. And inculcating hygienic habits to the children are possibly going to be a major step which will go down.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So like Dr. Indira Jay shared she had to sleep with her feet out. Would you like to share any experiences when you were growing up? Like, because we are at the Lit Fest, any narrative you would want to share?
Yeah, I will just say, when I think about stories like that, I think these are very powerful narratives. And I think we have lost, in many ways, describing what's happening to our planet in the lack of storytelling. We give data, and we talk about polar bears on icebergs or even parts per million of carbon dioxide. And, that's altruism, right? It affects a different part of our need to act. I love polar bears, but it may be different than having a picture or story of my parents' risk of chronic lung disease or my children attached to an inhaler because the air quality is so bad and it's so hot, right? So I think we in medicine have to leverage what we know the data tells us, which nurses are actually the best, trusted messengers. So if we can utilize that and tell stories that, again, will get those messages across, just like we do every day at the bedside when we have a heart attack, right? We talk about plumbing, and we say, the plumbing got messed up and you got blocked and the oxygen isn't getting to your heart. That's why I had a heart attack, right? We do this all the time. We're very good at this. I think, and in this way, we've sort of failed that, I think, in that larger narrative. So again, one, talking about those stories from the health perspective, but then offering solutions. Here's what we know. We can build resilience in our communities and how to keep yourself and your families healthy.
I think that's really well put. Because you said storytelling, Sonali, my next question obviously is to you. That's what Sesame really does. You all use different tools, whether it's Muppets, whether it's been comic books. How has this narrative of telling those stories, I think, changed or transformed in the last couple of years?
I think that's really a fantastic question that you've asked because, we've been working with children. Sesame is now 55 years plus as a global, organization, teaching children everywhere in the world. Some of the most difficult terrains, even as we speak, whether it's, the refugee camps to very plush apartments in New York. So it's like a really big swath of children. I think in some way, and when I look at our own culture in India, we are storytellers. We remember our grandmothers, their stories, our mothers, their stories, and those stories are told generation after generation. So I think there is this big oral history that we can really sort of connect in with. And I think that's very important for us to understand that we love stories. And how do we make those stories the tool for communicating with children? And I have to pick up these two books that we have created with Reckitt. They're absolutely amazing. We, as storytellers, we use a lot of child-friendly tools. We are the creators of Muppets, but with Reckitt, and Ravi, you know this, and I'm going to ask you to hold one of these books. We created these amazing Muppets, Neela Jadugar and KK Kitanu, along with our Sesame Muppets, to really engage with children, to get them to talk about topics. And hygiene, and we always say children love talking about poop, and they laugh and they giggle. So we really, connected with that humor to tell this story. And we spoke about not just, pulling the flush, but some very sensitive things about respect for sanitation workers. Like, they are important people in our lives, and we need to talk about them as well. So when we are saying inculcate good habits, I think respect underlines everything. Very, very important. It's respect for yourself. That's why I wash my hands and take care. But when I pull the flush and leave a loo clean, I'm respecting the person who's going to come in next, or the person who has to clean that loo. So I think that's a very significant point that with Reckitt we've been able to talk about at a very large level. Not just hygiene at home, in schools, in public spaces. I think that is very critical. Sometimes we keep the home clean, or mom keeps it clean. Yeah, but when we go out, we just leave the mess behind. We don't like a movie hall or say a park or a railway station. So I think that's something that we must expand our consideration, and those are the stories we want to tell. In fact, when I was listening to you, Jay, I just had this random thought. So I watch Netflix and all these OTTs, and I'm sure all of you do. I think the medical soaps have become so many. Every second release is a medical soap. And I'm like looking at them, and I feel like I'm going to be a heart surgeon just watching them. So I was just saying to myself, and I was thinking that today, if to your point about has the audience changed, I think the storytelling has also changed.
Yeah, and it's not just about awareness, but it's about sensitizing. I mean, what you said about respect. I mean,
Yeah.
keeping everything in mind. That's what awareness, creating, building those kind of things as well. Ravi, your take on that, of course, you'll have created books, the campaign, which started with initially first 1,000 days. So really when the child, first 1,000 days is so critical. I've also looked at adolescents, every age group. What really goes behind the thought, when you're working on this?
There are few very interesting assumptions. When you tell good things to the people, they stay for the very less time in the mind. Most of the cigarette packs have the warnings, don't smoke. Nowadays, you have the pictures of the cancer patients with their, faces, with their lungs and throat. But still, I don't see smoking has reduced. Although there are a lot of measures globally which have been put to make sure it's not done in the public places, the change in the age of, legalization of the cigarettes and tobacco, a lot of efforts to put on the newer technology by some of the companies. But still, COVID was a very interesting and important time. A lot of companies came up with the sanitizers, the soaps, and suddenly when the COVID got over, 80% of the market rolled back. Looked like now no one needs sanitation anymore, no one needs hygiene anymore. Now it's more the reason because there may be further pandemics, further epidemics, further infections. I have personally worked on Ebola in my career. I worked on SARS, I worked on MERS, I worked with H1N1, influenza, avian flu, and looks like my work experience of around 22 years, good 17, 18 years is all behind the epidemics and endemics where I have worked, ranging from Papua New Guinea to Haiti to India to, Nigeria, Nambia, and many other countries. I personally think, Ambika, there's a lot which has changed in the communication direction across the globe. As well as in India. People are very demanding. attention span has gone down. If you really want to make something long format for 1 hour, 30 minutes, 90 minutes, people are not interested in that. We need to find the newer ways so that more engagement can happen. I'm not saying have the fancy tools, but have the tools which are widely accessible. And this is a time to accelerate the progress on the public health. And that can only happen through digitalization, and I'm very sure with India's ambition of Viksit Bharat at 47, we are progressing already. There was a time we used to, as a public health expert and a policy expert in the Indian domain, I was seen as like, there's a big difference in the mobile usage between urban and rural 10 years back. There's a lot of, the gap has been bridged now. You have the smartphones. The smallest and the cheapest smartphone comes for around 2,500 to 3,000 rupees. Access is more, so the newer content is required. And if there is static content, people hate it. You need to make the newer content. And further, like people want experience. Kids need experiential learning. They believe in being the leader. Because in schools, always there are teachers who teach them. So kids also need some occasions where they want to lead by example. There are online games where you can actually say, okay, I am the leader. So this football team I am making, in the same way, I make the climate champions, or I make the hygiene champions, or I make the sanitation champions. And every action taken will have a reward system. So we have worked on, recently, Ambika, you and me, we went to Davos and the World Economic Forum, where we launched a game called Hygia. In Latin, it means the goddess of hygiene. So we took that game to 7 Indian languages, and there was so much demand globally. We couldn't resist, and from India, we gave it to the world in Davos this year. And we gave a game Hygia in 4 international languages, Mandarin, Spanish, French, and English, definitely. And then there are a lot of countries who are the Middle East countries. They're also now asking us, can we do it in Urdu and other languages, the native languages? So we are challenging ourselves, as well as we are trying to bring the game Hygia in 22 Indian languages now. So that language is not a barrier in the communication, in your award system, reward system. And to my surprise, in last 2 months, we have more than 7 lakh views, or 700,000 views, and we look forward to have more than, we want it to be placed at the #1 game on the Play Store.
So that everybody can benefit, right? I mean, that's
Thank you.
yeah. Jay, I just want to take it from there because, we're talking about building sustainable communities. I want to ask you about climate change since you really are the expert here, and we've been talking about children. Sonali even mentioned initially that, we don't talk about how it's impacting them, but it's really their future. Again, future-proofing children. What would you like to share with the audience here today when it comes to climate change and the huge impact it has on children and, and even further as they grow?
Yeah, I mean, the impact on kids is going, first, we know that there's a climate dysphoria that's settling in, especially kids that are a little bit older, and they're wondering, what's going on. It's analogous for those that are older, nuclear proliferation, things like that, where there's a real anxiety around it. I think when it comes to kids and kids' health, we have to think about how they're eating, what their choices are, where this is going to, these effects play out over sustained periods of time. One of the biggest things I think about is when extreme storms come and forced migration, right? So that's going to be something where children, now question the very safety of their homes, the neighborhoods they grew up in. Their aunts and uncles and relatives are now being forced to move. So the best way, I think, to understand this is vulnerability. And children are extremely vulnerable. We know there's different types. There's physiologic vulnerability, geographic vulnerability. Kids are going to be perpetually vulnerable in this. And often they're going to muster the least amount of resources because it's not always the public health systems are geared towards children. So thank you, Sesame Street.
I can just, Dr. Indra, just moving, since we're talking about climate and we have about just over 12 minutes, the link between climate change and hygiene, since we are trying to connect it, right? When we're talking about building sustainable communities, when we're talking about innovative health, what really is the link?
I think if you I'll talk of India if you want to talk on India. I think in a way, there are lots of public health problems which you look into in India, which we have not been able to tackle to the extent we wanted them to be tackled. And I think one of the major problems, as you all know, that we have is diarrhea. Diarrhea is a problem. In spite of long programs, expensive programs, India hasn't been able to handle it as well as we wanted it to be handled. We still have very high diarrhea levels, and it's not really coming down these days. So I think these are issues, diseases which are existing. Some of them are mildly increasing, and new infections coming in. Like COVID came in, new infection, and we really don't know. And as you know, microbes change. They can mutate themselves, and they change every day. I mean, we can't change, but they do change, and they go against antibiotics, they go against all the medicines that we use, and they won't know how to survive. They can survive, and they can multiply, and they bring in new infections. So I think it's very, very important that climate change itself has a huge impact on that, and that we are doing ourselves. It's not that, I mean, we are making the way for them. We are using new medicines, which they change into others, or we are spoiling our climate. Huge pollution, we use things which pollute the world. We use things, as I mentioned, which are changing our water, our food. So I think these are issues which are very important, the diseases which we have not been able to control. How do we sort of control them? Number one, how do we control new diseases coming in? Because we are not able to predict which is going to come and which is not going to come. So I think, therefore, the future of this world will depend on what we think today and prevent from. Therefore, climate change is a huge thing. And as Ravi mentioned about Viksit Bharat, when India dreams to become a developed country by 2047, I mean, like any other developed world where the diarrhea is a history to them. Very few people have diarrhea in developed countries. I was in Denmark some time back, and there's 3 people had diarrhea. It was the headlines on a newspaper. And here we have thousands of diarrhea every day, millions of people having diarrhea.
True.
So when do we become like that? So I think it's very important that
Keep working
to become
on
a
the
developed
basics
country, we look at all this and forecast.
and
all
really
this,
move towards a
Yes.
Viksit Bharat. So I think, the last 10 minutes to make it a little more fun. Of course, Sonali, I have a question. And we're talking about children, and it's the Jaipur Lit Fest, so how can I not ask you? As a mother, I struggle. I have 2 boys. How do we inculcate the habit of just reading, Because kids, they are the digital kids. Now you can call them digital natives, right? How do we make sure that children can at least read a bit?
I think this is a perennial problem. Most parents ask me because we are Sesame and, we just communicate and work with children. So I think the only way we can inculcate good habits is lead by example. So you may say read, but you don't read. So how did the kid pick up the habit of reading?
Good role model.
Good role models. Make a reading corner at home. Buy some books that you can enjoy with your child. I think those are so critical. And as Indian parents, we are so exam-oriented and result-oriented. We'll buy the child the Britannica. We'll buy every reference book in the world, but we don't buy any fun books, story books that actually fire the mind with imagination, make you creative. Because in today's world, and I respect all the scientists around me, but I really at the heart of me believe that we need creative solutions. Science will give you the medicines, but if you really want to change the world, you need that good behavior, you need that leadership, you need that child to feel confident, less anxious. Yeah, and we just spoke about that a little bit now. So just bringing all of that in Ambika into the room today and saying that if we want that child to be happy, have that secure, well-nurtured childhood, then we as adults are very responsible. So I would say, let's create a little reading corner. If you can borrow books, share books. Sometimes books are expensive. I'm not saying they're also, sharing is a great way. Let's share books. Let's have fun books with the study books because, it's not that you read meaning padho, as which we in India say. So let's have fun books and lead with examples. So I think these would be the way. And the last point I'll make, Ambika, and hand it back to you. It's okay if the child reads on a screen. That water has flown under the bridge. Yeah. We can't say no, only paper. In fact, now we are also dealing with how many paper books and all of that, right? So we are also struggling with that. So let's look at different ways in which children can enjoy the written word, which is either on a screen or I would still love my book. Yeah, I mean, just my generation, I guess.
So role model, creative solution. Jay, you wanted to
I was
say
gonna
something.
say, you've got to turn off the electronics. And e-readers, fine, but everything else, books cannot compete against games
can't more agree. I
and
can't
YouTube
more
and all
agree.
that. So that it has to be turned off.
E-reading, yeah. Ravi, you wanted to say something as well?
Very interestingly, Ambika, 10 years back when we curated the similar kind of panel here, we have been supporting GLF from 10 years now. The hall like this had hardly 10 people. The biggest change what I see after in 10 years is the great audience here
The audience is changing.
for the subject like this, because sustainability was seen as a distant dream and hygiene was like, okay, हिंदी में बोलते हैं तो हाँ ठीक है चलता है, but things have changed over a period of time. And this audience of over 200 gives me a very strong confidence. It will further multiply because the future will be not pandemic proof if we don't take care of health and hygiene well. And if our life expectancy will change. Now it has increased, but still India has certain population groups who still have the life expectancy at 40. And largely the medium life expectancy is around 76 now. There's a huge gap. So maybe like this life expectancy may reverse back if the hygiene and sanitation is not taken care of well, because we think hygiene is the foundation for the good health.
Absolutely, really well put. Indiraji, close quickly if you can give us a closing remark.
I think Ravi has already given a closing remark, and as I said that over the years, I've seen 5 decades in public health. I worked in very major public health organizations, WHO and everywhere. But what I find that initially people didn't think that hygiene had anything to do with health. It completely, the water sector, wash sector, water, hygiene, sanitation was a different sector altogether. If you talked of sanitation or hygiene in the health sector, they would not talk to each other. Now the things have really changed. Now I think people think hygiene is how important. And whatever said and done, Ravi, I think COVID has been a learning experience
Absolutely,
for everyone.
yeah.
They may not follow the habits, but it's a learning experience for people to understand, yes, hygiene is very important. It's very important. I think it's been a big learning session. So in everything, you learn to what my father told me, we were small, that you see a silver lining in every cloud. So this is a silver lining in our COVID, that we have learned that how important hygiene is.
Absolutely. Jay, what would you like to share as a closing remark? And also if you want to give a global perspective when we are talking about building really sustainable communities.
I would say, I wonder when Kermit the Frog is going to sort of give these messages, because that's what I'm kind of looking for. I think in terms of sustainability, we're undergoing changes in global governance right now, and it's disheartening. I think very important to find leadership wherever we can. And the message is clear. We have got to change the way we do business globally. We are not living sustainably, and there's many metrics. And so I think, again, I think if we can reinforce those messages and ask more from our leaders, then...
And would you quickly like to also share some, successful best practices, which you think have been good, innovative healthcare models, which could be replicated?
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing now, what you were talking about earlier, is we're promulgating climate and health and sustainability training in all aspects of healthcare. So nurses, doctors, from the entry into the early schools to continuing medical education. If your healthcare providers are invested and understand it and know the solution space, then that's a very powerful constituency to help us make these changes.
And that's a very valid point, and that's why you say it's important to have climate doctors. Sonali,
Yeah. So I just wanted to add, as I was listening to the panel, I realized how intersectional the work needs to be. Everything is connected: health, climate, hygiene. So I think I would just say that we recognize that it cannot be just let's look at one aspect and then hopefully we'll solve the problem. It's a complex problem. We need to address all elements, and especially for children, it's very critical. We just spoke about climate anxiety linked to mental health. I think we just want to bring that back into the room as well. Health has created, I know COVID created fear and huge amount of tension for children. So it has to be an intersectional approach. We need to address all dimensions if we want to secure the future for our children. And by the way, Kermit is not a Sesame character anymore, so he can't talk. We can't influence Kermit.
So intersectional approach is what I've taken from Sonali. Last question to you, Ravi, on collaboration and partnership. Hats off to you, what I've been seeing, the kind of partners which you have on ground.
Very grateful to 100 plus partners who work with us day in and day out. Also very thankful to more than 40 Padam Shris and Padam Vibhushans from various spheres of life, from art to music to culture to dance to public health we work with. Also very thankful to Oscar winners who have been lending their voice to this work at the international platform with me. Also to Honorable Prime Minister who spoke from the Red Fort in 2015 about the Clean India mission. Last but not the least on my list is Sri Dalai Lama ji. Last year when I met him, the first question he asked me, so still do you think like one day will come when under 5 deaths will reduce in India and we will not be like other countries like Nigeria and Pakistan? Can we have the better child indicators? I was very surprised. And the second question from him to me was, what's happening to your sanitation workers in India? Has the status improved or it's same? Has the life expectancy improved or not? So I'm finding the answers with a lot of people, and thank you to all this wonderful audience, because I'm very sure some of the things which you will be listening from here, you are also going to talk about it. Although this is not a very so-called sexy subject, but it has a lot of merit to discuss with the others. Thank you.
And I think those 2 questions leave all of us also thinking, very critical questions. Any questions? Wow, we have lots of... So could we please have a mic?
Thank you for the good discussion on the various creative strategies that have been applied. Now, what I missed, and I think Ravi, you touched upon it at the very last, was we spoke about the interconnectedness between hygiene, health, and climate change. But I think what we missed was the cleanliness part of it. You travel any part of the country, and you are simply hit in the face by the enormous mountains of garbage, rubbish, filth that you come across. And somehow, despite the fact that ever since it was spoken about from the ramparts of the Red Fort, 20,000 rupees were collected as the Swachh Bharat cess up until 2017 when it was replaced by the GST. What are the challenges that we are facing that we are not able to make any dent or difference in that area? And you will never be able to achieve, your goals in hygiene and health until you have these mountains of rubbish and garbage lying around.
Thank you so much, sir. Very interesting question. So there is something which I say to everyone in Hindi. Hindi में बोलते हैं मेरे 10 गज, English में बोलते हैं my 10 yards. So if everyone takes the collective responsibility, I'm sure those pile of heaps which are landing in the landfills, we can reduce it from the source itself. There are 2 ways of solving it. One is actually all the heaps are piled on. Second is we see it upstream and we sort it out from our doorsteps where you are actually segregating the waste in the different ways. If I personally ask, there's a big audience here, including like I can reflect on my own family and my house. Do I have the waste segregation at my house? Recently started. After listening from people like you, from many others, I'm sure that habit needs to be formed. And habit formation has significant challenges because it also depends on the social norms. And changing norms is very, very difficult. public health or non-public health and the society, there's a lot of stratification and other things. We can discuss it offline also. But the most important thing is mere 10 gaj or my 10 yards. How I take my responsibility of my 10 yards and I keep that and make a promise to myself to take care of.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to add something to what Ravi said. We have a beautiful program called My Planet, My Home. And when we started this program, many naysayers said, like, how will small children really talk about the bigger problems, like the polar bears to plastic in the ocean? And we did a survey and we were very surprised by what kids were saying. And the most critical, like we sort of said, what action do you want? And to your point, action number 1 was stopping garbage burning. And we were like completely gobsmacked, like where did this come from? And kids in Delhi were saying that garbage gets accumulated at street corners and they burn them in winters. So I would like to say to your answer that, you know, like what Ravi said, the answer is in the room. The next generation is already becoming very conscious. They want to see behind the label what's going on with this product. Can it be recycled? How do we really, where is it manufactured? Is it damaging the economy? I think the young people are showing the way, and I think that's very heartening to me that people are getting in there, but you're very right. And what Ravi is also saying, from policy right to what I
everybody is
do at
responsible and
home,
needs to take collective
we all have to take responsibility.
Well, thank you all so much. I can see a lot of hands up, but sorry we're running out of time. But really being such patient audience, thank you so much. I'm
That's
really sorry
because it
we
was an
can't take those questions.
Thank you for an incredible session. That's why there are so many hands. Thank you to Dr. Lemery, Ravi Bhatnagar, Indira Chakravarti, Sonali Khan, and Ambika Singh.